What is good, gods and goddesses? Your boy Hollywood AJ back with another episode of the Keep It 100 YouTube channel. And today, you know what? I decided to spit some venom. I'm deciding to go out here and lay it all out in the most respectful yet charismatic way that I possibly can. The UFC moved to ESPN in 2019, all right? And we didn't know what kind of analyst would be covering the game at that time. In Fox, you had actual fighters. You had Kenny Florian, you had Chael Sonnen, you had Michael Bisping, Dominic Cruz. Those guys still cover it now, but back then, we knew what we were getting. With the UFC going to ESPN, we didn't know if Stephen A. Smith was going to come and put his 2 cents in on the MMA world. Now, we get a little more of, okay, back to the fighters, back to guys that actually know the sport. DC and Helwani had their own show. Chael Sonnen has his own show on ESPN. Ryan Clark and DC are creating a show, which is really odd, but I like it. I watch it. The reason why I'm calling this out and the reason why I'm presenting this to you guys is because I feel like a lot of these analysts, with all due respect, don't know the things that I know in this sport. It's just a fact, you guys. I mean, it is blatantly a fact, and I'll get into more on that later. But I'm going to show you something that is truly mind-boggling, and it just shows the knowledge I have for the sport. I'm not saying this to be cocky. I'm saying this because this is truly something that I love and something that I've been watching for the better of 14 years. So get ready for this. It's going to blow y'all mind. Look at that. Y'all see that? Every day, every Saturday, the day of the big pay-per-view fights, I go through my picks. I circle, as you can see, the guys or girls who I think are going to win. All right. I do it from the start of the prelims that are televised on ESPN to the main event that is on pay-per-view. So if you go back and look at this entire fight card, you can see I got them all right. And that is what I'm here to talk about, UFC 269 recap, and just simply how I got all these fights right. Okay. So strap in, get your notepad ready, because y'all might learn something a little bit, all right? So Bruno De Silva, I knew he was going to win just because his experience. He was taking on a UFC newcomer, but his experience alone was going to help him win, you know? And it was just something that I just knew the power of Silva, Bruno De Silva, was just going to be too much for this kid to handle. And boy, was it. Huge victory. Many people were like, oh, it was an early stoppage. That was a great stoppage. Herb Dean gave him every chance he could to recover, but that was just one of those fights where you got to stop it right then and there. Then you had Taito Ivasa versus Agusto Sakai. Taito Ivasa was in the rankings before. He had a main event against Junior Dos Santos 3 years ago. Didn't really go his way, but it wasn't the end of Taito Ivasa at all. So he fights Agusto Sakai, UFC newcomer, came into the UFC last year, and it is a great step up in competition for Taito Ivasa, especially being his last time out. He defeated Greg Hardy, who was another great step up in competition. It was a close fight. It was a more technical fight. Taito Ivasa didn't have a victory outside of the first round in a very long time. He didn't have a knockout victory outside of the first round. So the more the fight went on, the more I'm like, okay, Ty's going to win, but Agusto might be able to turn the tide of the fight, per se. He might be able to land more punches, maybe even get a takedown to steal the fight away. That is not what happened. Taito Ivasa just completely obliterated Agusto Sakai in that third round. I mean, just uppercuts, hooks, right hands. I mean, two grizzly bears strictly going at it. And I don't know what's going through Agusto Sakai's head to just cover up, and not only cover up, but literally going at him and like clinching up top with him in almost a tie clinch, per se, because it just left his chin completely wide open. That left a great right hand, left hook, followed up right behind it. Agusto Sakai drops. The whole arena shook, and Taito Ivasa jumped on the cage, got the shoey from the Nelk boys, which I have no idea how they're famous. It's the most stupidest thing ever. Got the shoey, poured the beer in the shoey. Crowd's going crazy. He's becoming a fan favorite, and he's going to be emerging as a contender. That guy is due for a fight in the top 10, top 15 for sure. As I mentioned, he wasn't ranked before, but this is definitely a fight that is getting him known in the public eye, and he's probably, other than Francis and Stipe, and Derek Lewis, he is probably one of the most popular heavyweights on the planet Earth. So huge victory for Taito Ivasa. I liked it. Now let's get to my boy Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz has had a string of bad luck. I know he started off the year back at UFC 259 fighting Casey Kenny in a fight that went the distance. It was a tough fight. I honestly got scared that Dominic Cruz was going to lose that fight, and I kind of thought he did, but when I went back and watched it, I thought, okay, Dominic did enough to win that decision. He fought Pedro Munoz this past weekend, and Pedro Munoz has been around. He's mostly known for knocking out Cody Garbrandt. His last 4 fights were against former champions in Cody Garbrandt, Frankie Edgar, Jose Aldo. Great step up in competition for a guy who's been around. But this was a true fight for Dominic Cruz. This was the fight that I thought was going to make or break Dominic Cruz, because Dominic Cruz has only won 1 fight in the past 5 years, okay? His last win up until the fight against Casey Kenny was against Uriah Faber back in June of 2016. Of course, the whole scandalous act from Keith Peterson when Dominic Cruz lost to Henry Cejudo, first show back from COVID in May of 2020. Dominic Cruz was questioning his ability to fight. A lot of analysts and a lot of people were like, okay, does Dominic Cruz still want this? He's a legend of the sport, an absolute legend. Can he go out there and string victories together and possibly go at one last title run? So this was the fight. This was the fight to truly see where he was at. And the first round, it looked good until he got caught. Just a great left jab from Pedro Munoz dropped Dominic Cruz, and I thought that was the beginning of the end. He got dropped again by another left hand. He dropped to his knees, and he looked a bit limp. It was a flash knockdown. But Dominic Cruz is a fighter. He's a born warrior. He's a tough guy from Arizona, as he has been saying throughout this past fight week. The referee, Mark Goddard, let him escape out of it, and then we got to see the Dominic Cruz of old, landing just a barrage of right hands, right hooks, left hooks, kicks, slipping punches like the old Dominic Cruz that we're used to seeing. He was vintage Dominic Cruz that night. He was almost the WEC Dominic Cruz, who I became a huge fan of. All right, he became the Dominic Cruz who was the bantamweight world champion, and he proved in my eyes that he is far from done. That guy still has it. I mean, I'd say he's about 2-3 more victories away from being in the top 3 and next in line for a shot at the title, but he is far from done. I mean, what he did to a guy in Pedro Munoz, who is no pushover, was just absolutely amazing. Now, I think the fight to make for Dominic Cruz after this fight is a guy who fought last weekend, that being Jose Aldo. 2 legends of the sport. The King of Rio versus the King of the Bantamweights. I mean, it doesn't get no better. That fight can be on a main card, a la this past fight, even though it was on the prelims, but you know what I'm saying. It could be on the main card, or it could be a main event for a fight night, and that'd probably get at least 800K views. At least 800,000. So I think that's the fight to make. Perfect time. Both of their careers are kind of at the same point where both aren't done, but both are still on like, the tail end of their careers. They're on that one last ride. So let's just get it done. Dominic Cruz, Jose Aldo. That is definitely the fight to make. Last prelim on the fight card for the prelims was Josh Emmett versus Dan Ige. That was a barn burner. All right. They gave it 30-27 Josh Emmett, and I don't see it as that. Dan Ige was coming on in the second round and was coming on towards the end. Josh Emmett looked very, very tired. He clearly won that first round, dropping Dan Ige twice. But Josh Emmett, he's known for being in these type of wars. His last fight was in June of 2020, and he fought Shane Burgos in what was considered fight of the year at that point. I mean, Josh Emmett, his career is very up and down. And this was another fight where, all right, we need to find out who this guy is. We need to find out if he's a serious contender or if he's just a gatekeeper. And I picked Josh Emmett to win mainly because, he knows what it takes to win. Dan Ige, in every big fight, has lost. His fight against Calvin Kattar, he beat Edson Barbosa, which was a huge feather in his cap. But other than that, he just doesn't show up to the big dance. And this was supposed to be Dan Ige's coming out party in my mind. But Josh Emmett put him back in his place. And, he did what he was supposed to do. So that was strictly just me being me and picking the guy who I just knew was going to win. All right, then we go into Sugar Sean O'Malley. probably one of the greatest unranked fighters of all time. He was fighting Julian Paiva. Try saying that 5 times fast. Julian Paiva, who's no pushover. Paiva's a monster. His jiu-jitsu is insane. His stand-up is wicked. Both men are very long, rangy, and dangerous for the bantamweight division. Sean O'Malley is probably one of the tallest bantamweights to ever compete in UFC history. Many people were wondering, when is there going to be a step up in competition? Especially after the performance that Sean gave this past weekend. I mean, just an outstanding right hand to the body, followed up by a left hook upstairs that dropped Paiva. And that was it. Utter domination. Paiva didn't land anything of true significance on O'Malley. It was just that easy for him. It was just truly spectacular to see. He is on a rise, and many people are, bashing him for the way he's coming up. He's doing what boxers do. I'm surprised MMA doesn't really follow this, but he's doing what boxers do when you fight the guys who you're supposed to beat just time and time again. And so you get this perfect resume of 20-0, 25-0, and then you go on and fight the harder fights. But I say now he's done with these ranked fighters. He truly needs to step up in competition. And I'll get to who he should fight next after I talk about Cody Garbrandt versus Khara France. I was looking forward to this fight the most on the card. Obviously, you had the main event and co-main event, but other from those two fights, this was the fight I was truly looking forward to on the card. Cody Garbrandt dropping from 135 to 125, not against no bum. Khara France is one of the biggest power punchers in the UFC smallest weight class for men. I mean, that guy can touch you and people will go flying. All right. And there was a lot of questions that needed to be answered for Cody Garbrandt. He's won one fight since 2016. And that being against Rafael Assunção back at UFC 250 in June of 2020. Other than that, he lost to TJ Dillashaw twice, lost to Pedro Munoz, and lost to Rob Font. The Rob Font fight was truly the fight where Cody Garbrandt didn't look like the Cody Garbrandt. He fought smart, but it almost like that didn't do him any good. It's almost like, okay, I need to be in these long, drag-out fights because that's who I am. If I get knocked out, so be it. But that's who I am. Fighting smart is just not who I am. Rob Font picked him apart. We just saw it. So there was a lot of questions. How will the weight cut be for Cody? He was talking a lot of trash about how the flyweights aren't going to know what to expect, how the flyweights hit a lot harder, so therefore I'm going to hit a lot harder, and I'm going to get a huge knockout for this fight. Okay? I was looking forward to see it. I was looking to see if Cody Garbrandt was going to be a person of his word. I'm so happy I went with Khara France because I remember during the walkouts and as this fight was getting closer and why I chose Khara France, it's because Cody Garbrandt has a glass jaw. I don't mean to disrespect him. I don't mean that as an insult. Cody Garbrandt is a former champion. I got a picture with him when he was the champion. When he beat Dominic Cruz that night, he looked like the greatest bantamweight to ever live. He just beat the greatest bantamweight to ever live. So how can you not put Cody Garbrandt in that talk at that particular time? But that's just sports. That's just the name of the game. Some fighters go through droughts where they can't get a win to save their life. And this is what was happening with Cody Garbrandt. All of his losses, except the Rob Font fight, were knockouts. And I just thought, okay, for as big of a puncher as Khara France is, he's going to knock out Cody. If he connects one time, this fight's done. This fight is simply done. I don't care if it's at flyweight, especially because he's dropping that weight. That just makes his jaw even more susceptible for a knockout. And I was right. Khara France caught him with a beautiful overhand right that floored Cody. I thought it was over right then and there because I saw his head almost hit the back of the canvas. Cody's a fighter. And this is where he's not a smart fighter. This is where he goes back to the bronze instead of the brains, per se. Because, as I mentioned, he loves these long, drag-out wars because that's who he is. But that also gets him knocked out. All right, look at the fight with Pedro Munoz. Those guys were just swinging, and then boom, Cody gets caught, ground and pounded, fight's over. TJ Dillashaw, he's looping punches. TJ Dillashaw is being very technical, keeping in close. Bang, bang. Cody Garbrandt gets knocked out both times. This fight, though, it was just not really that dominant. on Cody Garbrandt's side. It wasn't even a fight, is what I meant to say. Khara landed that overhand right and was being very patient. Cody Garbrandt's like, come on. No, you need to gather yourself, circle out, get out of the way, and boom. Maybe you'll recover, maybe you won't. But what happened. Khara landed another overhand right that completely floored Cody, and that was it. It was a perfect knockout, and that was Khara's coming out party for sure. He is truly a bona fide contender after what he just did to the former bantamweight champion. I don't know what's next for Cody Garbrandt. I truly believe if he wants to continue to do this, him, his team, his wife, his family, his friends, they all need to sit down with him and truly talk about what is next. You can't keep taking punishment the way you have been taking because it's just not healthy. It's simply not. So I would consider retirement if I was him, but if you're going to go back and fight, I think Sean O'Malley's the perfect character. He's not ranked. It'd be a perfect fight to truly see if you still got it. It'll be a true test for Sean O'Malley to see, all right, is this kid for real? He's fighting a former champion. He's fighting a name. I know Sean O'Malley's going to knock him out because Cody Garbrandt simply don't have a chin. But if Cody Garbrandt don't retire, I feel like him and Sean O'Malley is the fight to make. And if he loses that fight, then Cody Garbrandt should definitely be done. Let's move on to Jeff Neal, Santiago Ponzinibio. It was a close fight. Really good fight. Jeff Neal clearly won the first. Ponzinibio was, I don't know. I don't know if you could say he won the second. I don't think he did. I thought Jeff Neal won all 3 rounds, but it was a close, competitive final 2. I just knew Jeff Neal was going to win. Santiago has taken a lot of time off. His ring rust was definitely catching up to him, and he looked rusty in this fight. He wasn't putting together the combinations or his wrestling like we're used to seeing, what made him a true top contender in this fight. You know, it was truly different to see him. You know, a lot of people were fearing Santiago. A lot of people didn't want to fight him. But Jeff Neal proved that he didn't lay out the blueprint, but he just fought smart. Started a combination. He threw nothing but combinations. I don't think Jeff Neal threw a singular strike. Jeff Neal just proved that, hey, I was on a 2-fight skid. Now I'm back to be the guy that won 9 out of his last 10. I'm not saying title shot, but he should definitely be looked at as a true top contender in the welterweight division. And at that point, I am at, let's see. I'm at 7-0. 7-0 on the night, looking to be 9-0 at the end of the night. And I was feeling pretty good. Not going to lie. I was feeling pretty good. Get into the 2 title fights. Juliana Pena, Amanda Nunez. I had a gut feeling. I honestly had this gut feeling when George Kambosos fought Teofimo Lopez that George Kambosos was going to win. What did he do? He won. I had a feeling. Same feeling that I had when Juliana Pena was fighting Amanda Nunez. Something felt off, all right? Juliana was the hungry lion, all right? She wants to fight Amanda because she knows something that we don't. In the build-up to this fight, we're like, okay, Juliana's just saying what she has to say to get a title shot. She's saying what she has to say to get herself psyched up. But at the end of the day, we all know Amanda's going to go out there and completely obliterate her, and we're never going to hear from Juliana Pena ever again. That was not the case. Juliana Pena had all the confidence in the world during fight week, and it seemed like Amanda Nunez was disconnected. I have a daughter. I love my daughter. Every person that has a kid should love their kid. Amanda Nunez has a daughter. We all know she loves her to death, which is amazing. That's what makes Amanda Nunez such a likable person. But Juliana Pena went to go kill her. Obviously not literally. Amanda Nunez was too focused on other things. She was too focused on her family. She wasn't in the mental state that a fighter needs to be in to go out and deliver a solid performance and retain your title. Even on the walkout to the fight, into the fight, as they were walking into T-Mobile Arena, Amanda Nunez had her kid, while Juliana Pena had her game face on. Juliana Pena was ready to fight. She knew she was going to be in for a long night, regardless if it was going to go her way or if it was not going to go her way. Amanda Nunez just thought, I'm going to go in and steamroll Juliana Pena the same way I steamrolled Holly Holm, Chris Cyborg, Raquel Pennington, Felicia Spencer, Miesha Tate. I'm going to do everything that I've done in the past, and no one's going to stop me. Fight starts, and Amanda does what Amanda does. She dropped Juliana. I honestly thought it was the beginning and the end. I put $40 on DraftKings. The payout was $300 for Juliana Pena to win. Either way, the bet was going to work out my way. I was either going to lose $40 or I was either going to win it all back and, get paid quite a bit. So fight starts off, like I said, Amanda dropped her and she's controlling her. Juliana is on the ground, but if you expect the grappling to go in any person's way, it was going to go in the champion's way. Juliana had a Kimura and Amanda had a little bit of concern on her face. She didn't really know what to do. Luckily, it was the end of the round. There was about 2-3 minutes left in the round. Things could have got interesting. Wouldn't say the fight have ended right there, but we would have saw Amanda get pushed in the first round, more in the second. Amanda clearly won the first. No debate about it. Juliana went back to her corner and was discouraged. She was frustrated. And in my head, I'm like, it's one round. You still got 4 more to go. You still have a whole fight. Like, that's like being in the first quarter of a basketball game. You're down by 15 going into the second. You're like, well, we're done. No, you're down 15. You still got to go play. There's still 3 more quarters left. You can still pull this out. So in my head, I'm like, no, she needs to get those negative thoughts out of her head. And her coach did a great job of doing that. I applaud him for being like, hey, we got it right where we want. Juliana's game plan was to get Amanda tired, because if there was one flaw that we saw in Amanda's career, was she gets tired the longer the fight goes on. The 2 perfect examples of this was when Amanda Nunez fought Valentina Shevchenko the second time and Jermaine Durandamy back at UFC 245 in December of 2019. Those were the 2 times we saw Amanda not in serious trouble, but she looked like she was about to go out and probably get pushed in a way we haven't seen her get pushed. Juliana wanted the fight to be grapple heavy because that's also her world. She has a black belt. She knows what it takes to go out and just be the Khabib of the male-female division. Second round starts, and Amanda and Juliana are just swinging. I mean, I love when girl fights do that. I feel like girl fights have that more than the guy fights have that. I mean, just swinging. Juliana's catching her. Amanda's getting wobbled. She's taking back steps. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, but also not trying to wake my daughter who was asleep at the time. It was just truly something crazy. I'm like, could this be it? Could Juliana Pena just shock the world and finally defeat the women's GOAT? I mean, just insane, just back and forth. But I also was really scared because Amanda has power. We saw her knock out Cyborg, and Cyborg doesn't get knocked out by anybody. So I'm like, Juliana can't be in a firefight like this because she could get knocked out as well. But what is the main thing that gets a person tired? I don't care who you are. I don't care how conditioned you are. It gets you tired, and that is a good old-fashioned slugfest. All right. The last time I saw a slugfest like that was Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Zhang Weili, UFC 248. I mean, that was just insane. And this fight was on its way. I wouldn't say. I forgot. I got to go watch the fight again. But Juliana Pena got Amanda in the clinch, put her up against the fence. I'm like, you got to take her down. This is your chance. If you don't finish her in this round, this fight might be done, and the tide might go back to Amanda's way. The tide was beginning to turn. Juliana just had to put the icing on the cake. Got her in the clinch. Took her down. Amanda gave her back like nothing. Juliana didn't even put in the chokes. It wasn't even a deep rear naked choke. It was more of a neck crank. And Amanda tapped so quick. I was in shock. I was like, she tapped. She tapped. Holy shit. It was just insane. I could not believe what I just saw. The last time I had that much shock on my face was when Chris Weidman beat Anderson Silva the first time. I mean, that is just... I was so happy for Juliana. She worked so hard to get where she was, coming from the Ultimate Fighter, being on Miesha Tate's team, to avenging her coach that coached her on the Ultimate Fighter. Let's not forget, Amanda Nunez beat the brakes off of Miesha Tate. And for Juliana Pena to beat the brakes off of Amanda Nunez is just the ultimate coronation of a new women's bantamweight champion. And I'm just so happy for her, not only because I got paid, but I like Juliana Pena. I like her story. I like the way she fights. She was willing to walk through fire to win that title, and she proved that for sure. There's going to be an immediate rematch. There's no doubt about that. Amanda, I would say, didn't look like herself, but if she really wants to go back and try and get that win back, there has to be a rematch for sure. Now, I don't know how that fight's going to go. I don't know when it'll be, but I would say that it's simply just a fight to make, and I'm going to wait. I can't wait for it. It's going to be more money, and it honestly is probably going to be the biggest fight in women's MMA history. Last title fight of the year 2021, Dustin Poirier versus Charles Oliveira. I am 8-0. I'm like, all right, Charles, this don't mean anything if you go out there and lose. I got to win. You got to win, Charles. This is the first time ever I have gone undefeated from picking start to finish, top to bottom. Charlie O had to go out and do it. This was going to be a great fight, not only on paper, but look at these guys' track sheets. Both of these guys have worked extremely hard. They are the true blue-collar men of the UFC. They've worked hard to just get a single title fight. Charles Oliveira did everything he could to capitalize on it. That's why he's the world champion. There's a lot of questions that needed to be answered in this fight. One of them is the narrative that, okay, Charles Oliveira quitted before. He's going to quit again in this fight. A lot of these supposed analysts and experts picked Dustin Poirier to win. I'm like, are you guys out of your mind? They're going based off of what he did to Conor McGregor, which in my opinion was just Dustin Poirier's night. You can call it luck, call it whatever you want, but at the end of the day, you can't pick Dustin Poirier off of what he did to Conor McGregor. So many people were going off the theory Charles Oliveira defeated Michael Chandler by knockout, but at the end of the day, he's a jiu-jitsu practitioner, so Dustin Poirier just could go out there, mop the floor with him, whatever. And I'm just like, are you guys forgetting who Charles Oliveira is? Are you guys forgetting what he did to Kevin Lee, what he did to Tony Ferguson? Y'all must have forgot. And Charles Oliveira damn reminded you guys that you guys don't know anything about fighting. I know they were picking Poirier because a lot of people were rooting for Poirier more than Oliveira because his story is probably better than Charles Oliveira's, but he was not going to win this fight. I knew it from the moment that this fight got announced. Dustin Poirier was still on cloud nine from defeating Conor McGregor, that he just wasn't going to do anything he could to win this bout. The first round, though, it was exciting, truly exciting, back and forth. Charles Oliveira got dropped. He got dropped to a knee, and Dustin Poirier, when he has you hurt, he goes out and finishes you. I don't care who you are. Just look at the Justin Gaethje fight. That is a pure prime example that Dustin Poirier is a stone-cold killer. I just knew. Make it to the end of this first round, Charles, then the fight is yours. The fight will really get started. Michael Chandler rocked Charles Oliveira in their title fight. Charles Oliveira survived that round, came back 19 seconds into the second, dropped Michael Chandler, finished him. But wait, I wanted y'all to keep that same energy. I wanted y'all to celebrate one round of victory the way y'all celebrated Dustin Poirier's one round of victory when he fought Conor McGregor the third time. I want y'all to celebrate that. Dustin Poirier clearly won the first round, but you guys weren't celebrating it the way you guys were for Conor. Why? Because this is a fight. It's not a 1-round fight. It's a 5-round fight. So therefore, second round starts. Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier going through a few grappling exchanges. Charles Oliveira was throwing nasty knees to the body. Dustin Poirier saying they weren't hurt. Dude, they were landing straight into your soul. They were hurting. Mike Tyson couldn't even take those. They hurt you. Charles Oliveira got taken down, which, okay, no problem. You're in his world. According to Daniel Cormier, you're in Dustin Poirier's world because apparently Dustin Poirier is the better grappler of the two. For those saying Dustin Poirier was a better grappler, what are you watching? What are you smoking? Like, what planet are you on, per se? So they go through a few grappling exchanges, and then finally, Dustin Poirier tries to roll. Charles Oliveira lands on top and then just completely dominates. Charles Oliveira did what Dustin Poirier did to Conor in their third fight, and I was loving it. And the reason why I wanted Charles to win so bad, I'll get into more on that later, is because Dustin Poirier was acting like he was a big man on campus after defeating, I'm putting defeating in quotation marks, because it was not an actual win. I could go on and on how that wasn't, but I just wanted Dustin Poirier to get humbled, basically, is what I'm saying. Just elbow after elbow. I'm like, get you some. It was amazing. I loved it. Clearly won the second. Dustin Poirier's theory was, I'd rather lose the round than lose the fight. You know, what he did to Khabib in that third round, had him in that guillotine instead of staying on the ground, waiting for the fight to come in the fourth, because all fights start on the feet, all rounds start on the feet. He instead took the L by just exposing his neck. Khabib got his neck and tapped him out. So we saw that in this third round. But Dustin Poirier looked really gassed after the first. I feel like he tried emptying the tank trying to finish Charles, because Dustin Poirier, as I mentioned, he's just a killer like that. When he senses you hurt, he's going to go after you. But he looked tired. Beginning of the second round, he was sucking air. And after the end of the second round, after he got mauled, he was even more tired. He was even more sucking air, that just losing the round didn't even matter. About 10 seconds in, Dustin Poirier gave up his back because he was fatigued. He was carrying Charles Oliveira weight, and not just carrying his weight, he was getting pummeled. He was getting mauled. Charles Oliveira is a wizard at jiu-jitsu. He might be one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the sport. He's very close to Fabricio Verdun, Damian Maia, Frank Mir, all these other guys. Charles Oliveira is in the top 2 or 3 for sure. Got his back. And I said this before. You can go back, make sure to subscribe to my other episodes to see what I've said about this. But Conor McGregor got Dustin in a guillotine. That was very, very tight. Could have finished him, but McGregor didn't because he didn't want to blow his arms out. If Charles Oliveira got Dustin Poirier in any submission, it was done. It was done. This guy's too skilled. What happened? Same way Dustin Poirier lost the title fight the first time to Khabib, same way he lost it this past weekend. Charles Oliveira silenced all of you that think you know MMA and tapped Dustin Poirier. Tapped him out. I mean, I'm not surprised about it. I'm not. I knew who was going to win from start to finish. And I should have a job on ESPN. This show should be on ESPN because I know more about this game than half of the population on Earth. And I'm not saying that just to say it. But Charles Oliveira silenced every critic in saying, put some respect on my mother effing name. So that's what he did. Y'all thought Poirier was going to have a walk in the park. Y'all thought Poirier was going to do this, that. Poirier's a better jiu-jitsu practitioner. Yeah, right. Poirier had 1 round to win, and he didn't do it. And it's just amazing to see how, you guys can't keep that same energy. When Conor lost, and now that Poirier's lost, people are like, oh my gosh, yeah, no, keep that same energy. That's exactly what I'm doing. So I'm not taking anything away from Dustin Poirier. He's a great guy. I love what he does with charities. I love his story. I love how great of a father he is. But as a fighter, he needs to understand that, he needs to understand. That's all I'm going to say about that. So 9-0. All fights I got were right. Maybe y'all should pay attention more. But at the end of the day, that's it. Great year of fights. I'll go more into the greatest knockouts, greatest cards later on in other episodes. But it was a great card. Amazing. And I'm excited to be a UFC fan. It was a great way to end off the year. And I look forward to January 22nd, Francis Ngannou versus Ciryl Gane. I hate how much they space these cards out. Like, I wish that fight was happening next weekend. But all in all, amazing time to just be a fan and to be grateful for life, for sure. Thank you all for watching. Please give me a like and subscribe. Comment on what your record was in picking the fights for UFC 269. Comment what your favorite upset of the night was, your favorite fight of the night was. Just comment on anything. Even if you just want to talk about something, go ahead and comment. Be sure to jump that subscribe button. For those that have subscribed, I appreciate you guys dearly. Journey's not over yet. We're just getting started. Your boy Hollywood AJ. Stay safe, stay healthy, keep it 100, and I'm out.